This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
During my 3rd year as undersecretary, I was awakened in the middle of the night by a phone call from the watch officer at NORAD. The general got right to the point. His warning computer was showing 200 ICBM missiles in flight from the Soviet Union to targets in the United States. For one heart-stopping second, I thought my worst nuclear nightmare had come true. But the general quickly explained that he had concluded that this was a false alarm. He was calling to see if I could help him determine what had gone wrong with his computer. He would have to report the incident to the president the next morning, and he wanted as clear an understanding as possible about what had happened and how that error could be prevented from ever occurring again. It took us several days to ascertain that an operator had mistakenly installed a training tape in the computer. It was human error. A catastrophic nuclear war could have started by accident, a frightening lesson that I have never forgotten. How great was the danger that this error could have led to a nuclear war, rather than being relegated to a footnote in the history of nuclear weapons? What led the watch officer to come to the correct conclusion? We can never know with certainty what was going on in his mind during those fearsome minutes. I have tried to put myself in his place and imagine what would have gone through my mind, assuming I was still rational after a shock of that magnitude. I would have been immediately skeptical that any leader in the Soviet Union would believe that such an attack could succeed in disarming the United States. Even if the attack succeeded in destroying many of our ICBMs and bombers, U.S. submarines would respond with thousands of nuclear warheads that would annihilate the Soviet Union. Soviet leaders understood that. Moreover, I would have noted that the indicated attack was a singular event. That is, there were no other events going on in the world consistent with a Soviet leader being willing to take such a terrible risk. That line of reasoning would have led me to conclude that this was a false alarm. These two conclusions provide an alarmingly scant basis for a decision of this nature, a decision made under the most extreme stress imaginable. And while I was prepared to be skeptical of the putative warning, what if the watch officer had not been? What if his human error had occurred during the Cuban Missile Crisis, or a Mideast war? Had the watch officer come to a different conclusion, the alert could have gone all the way to the president, waking him and giving him perhaps 10 minutes to make a decision about the fate of the world with little context or background to inform that choice. That is why I regard as seriously flawed the nuclear alert decision process. It expects the president to make this fearsome decision in minutes and with very little context. But that was how our decision process worked then, and essentially still works today. With such a decision process, a huge premium must be given to the context that informs the decision made by the watch officer, by the commander of NORAD, and by the president, and by their counterparts in the Soviet Union. Achieving context is one of the critical reasons, largely overlooked, for pursuing arms control agreements. Yes, a successful arms control agreement in 1977 could have put a brake on the arms race then underway, decreasing the cost of our weapons and the threat we pose to each other. But even more important, it would have engaged us in a dialogue with our deadly foe, given both sides a degree of transparency, and, most critically, given us context, a better understanding of our opponent, to inform the awesome decisions we were expected to make in a heartbeat. In my judgment, the context gained was far more important than the numerical arms reductions achieved. As long as the quantitative terms of a treaty do no harm, the treaty serves a larger purpose in giving us essential context.